Everywhere I go, people tell me, I don't garden. I can't grow anything. Every plant I touch dies. I believe anyone can grow plants once they know how. Even confessed plant killers can learn the simple skills needed to sustain plant life. Like fashion, every gardener has their own style. How you grow plants is as unique to you as the clothes you put on every morning. So the crew and I would like to invite you on a journey of 1,000,000 miles. A journey that starts with one step. A journey that just might change your life. One of the things I wanted to talk about is multi-season gardening. And in order to determine a multi-season of gardening, you first have to define what your season is. The U.S. Department of Agriculture publishes a plant hardiness zone map. And basically, it contains information about the climate in your area. You can see one at the bottom of this seed packet here. And the things that this is going to tell you is your first frost day in the spring, which is usually sometime in April or early May, and then your last frost in the fall, which is September, or maybe it's your last frost in the spring and your first frost in the fall. And the number of days in between is your growing season. Now, I know many of us spend all of our time in the spring. It's a feverish pace. We're shopping for what we need, starting our seeds, is the ground ready to go, and trying to start our gardens and get everything going immediately. But you know, there's a second season and a third season for growing plants, which makes growing things very rewarding and exciting. You know, I tease with my mother all the time that mums are harbingers of death. Whenever the mums come into the garden centers, you know, frost is just around the corner. But these simple tips and tricks are going to help you to grow plants and vegetables and fruits well into the cold fall months. Currently, it's the middle of the summer, and most of our heaviest gardening activities are over. Here in the United States, typically most gardening is done in the early spring and early summer, and then we rest for the rest of the summer and enjoy our harvest. But one of the things that I like to do is deploy a second harvest, a second growing season. And in order to determine what a second growing season is, you have to first define what your full growing season is. And everywhere in the world has a range of temperatures from minus 50 degrees to plus 100 degrees. And in the United States, you can go to the National Arboretum's website and pull up a U.S. Department of Agriculture plant hardiness zone map. That map will give you your first frost date and your last frost date. I know for here, where I am filming, our first frost date is roughly between April 15th, if it's an early spring, and May 15th, if it's a late spring. Once you determine what your full growing season is, then you can determine where you are, and that's where you're going to go to your calendar. But first, let's talk about the varieties of plants that are good to grow in your second season of growing. And we're going to say that your spring crops and your midsummer crops are your first crops of the season. And then now that it's the middle of the summer and the heat is on, is when you're going to start planting and sowing and getting ready for that fall crop. Nothing is more rewarding than picking your own potatoes and having mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving, or picking your own string beans and having string beans on Thanksgiving. I mean, pumpkins are all well and good, but there are so many other things for us to grow straight through the fall up into the heavy snow. My grandfather always wants to have the first tomato every year. So when he goes to the store, he buys the one in the pot, it already has flowers on it. But he doesn't understand that it's an early girl variety. So it grows and thrives in a very short amount of time and then piddles out in the middle of the summer. Now, if you look at the back of the seed packet over here, the manufacturer is telling you about the variety of the seed. So this is a summer cucumber, And you can see that the days to germination is 5 to 10 days, and that the days to harvest is 56 days. Now that 56-day period starts after your 5 to 10 days of germination. Now the beautiful thing about starting seeds in the middle of the summer is your germination is really quick. I've never had anything take the full germination time. Most of it takes 2 to 3 days, 5 to 7 days, but it's really quick because this is the optimal growing time. You're not trying to force things with the soil being cold and wet and damp like in the spring. So now that you know 56 plus 5 days is 61 days, you move over to your calendar. And here we have a multi-month calendar. There's also a wheel, a date wheel that you can use. You'd have to go to the website to see it. But you would pick it would be your first frost date in the fall based upon the information that you got on the National Botanical Garden website. Or, if you Google it, it can be the growing seasons are mapped out throughout the entire world. So no matter where you are, that information is available to you. And then you would count back 61 days from that frost date. So I know, based upon my last 15 years of journaling and keeping records, that my first frost date in the fall is usually right around October 9th, give or take a day or two. So I count back 61 days from October 9th, and then I can plant my seeds, and I know that I will have a crop of cucumbers in that, right around the middle of October when no one else can have cucumbers, and the cucumbers at the store are now $2 and $3 a pound. So that's a great tip. Watch your calendar and watch your weather. But the variety is the key to success for your second season. So when you're selecting plants to grow for your second season, try the early varieties or the cool weather varieties. Like red Pontiac potatoes are a great cool weather variety for a fall crop just for Thanksgiving of potatoes. The other thing that we want to talk about when we're talking about having a second season of growing is a microclimate. Every garden has microclimates. The USDA gives us general rules, but there are little parts of our yard. How many of us grow in a raised bed? This is a microclimate for the soil. You've raised the soil up from the frozen earth, and it will warm up faster in the spring. And if you're in a damp area, the water will drain better for your plants. So you're trying to create a microclimate for your soil. Conversely, in the fall, that soil will cool down much quicker. So maybe that's a good idea for some salad crops for your fall crop. Another perfect example of a microclimate is when we plant our garden plants, in a southern exposure as opposed to a northern exposure or a southeast exposure or a southwest exposure. As the sun moves around the earth through the different seasons, the angle that it hits your garden changes. So when you hit a southern exposure, that's a microclimate that will keep more light and more warmth on your garden in the fall and winter months. So for example, the front of my house is a southern exposure. I can grow these beautiful zinnias there in the fall and in the spring, but in the summer, it's way too hot and dry, so I can't put them there. So I'm constantly doing what's called succession planting, and that's every so many weeks I'm starting maybe 10, 15 seedlings so that I can put them in different places in my yard. This extends the bloom and extends the enjoyment of your yard. The other technique for a second harvest is to be able to move your harvest. I like to plant a lot of things in these woolly pockets, and basically they have these grommets, and I can hook them all around. So as the sunlight is waning and there's more and more shadow, I just hook it into an area of the yard that has more sunlight for a longer period of time, and I can collect fresh herbs for the Thanksgiving and early Christmas table, depending on how severe the winter is going to be. Microclimates are important when you're placing your plants and moving your plants around. If you have plants in a pot, placing them somewhere near a stone wall or a building with a southern-facing exposure can often get you from a zone 6 to maybe a zone 7. I know that there's a gardener in Florida who boasts tropical climates of zone 12, and technically he's only a zone 10. But it's only in a 2-foot spot in his garden against a wall where he can keep that warmth going through the winter. So I encourage all of you to try a second season of growing. It's a lot of fun, and it helps to prevent the winter doldrums. We are so pleased you could join us today. For more gardening information or to connect with gardeners of the globe, go to www.honestgardening.com. If you have specific questions about today's show, you can find me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter. All of us at Down and Dirty Enterprises hope you enjoyed watching the show as much as we enjoyed making it. We hope it's both entertaining and informative, but most of all, we hope you'll join us in the weeks to come. Until next time, stay healthy, stay strong, and happy gardening.
I can